Hello, today I'm going to talk about a game from Game Designer's Workshop, or also called GDW, from 1979, called Belter Mining the Asteroids, 2076. I'm glad I finally got around to doing a GDW game. They're, classic games. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out. So Belter, it wasn't obvious to me at first, but Belter is a term that in the future will be used to refer to people that work in the asteroid belt. I guess I should have figured that out, but that's what that refers to. The art, I think, I think it's great. Several other games like Blood Tree Rebellion, Double Star, they use this like two-color scheme, which I think is really nice and unique. The art itself is wonderful. It's unique. It shows a lot of neat elements. It's directly tied to the game. They're apparently blasting an asteroid here, so it's great. It really helps set up the theme. So the box itself, it's on their typical kind of big flat boxes. It's like 11 inches by 14 or so, and like an inch and a half thick. So very well done. As far as theme, you can read the rules, get theme, but like they do in the other games, they have a little theme around the edges here. So in the latter years of the 21st century, the new frontier is the asteroid belt, an untamed and lawless region which promises untold riches and threatens terrible danger. Into this situation, players introduce their workforces, search for valuable minerals, mine and refine them, and sell them on the open ore market. They may make a fortune, or they may go broke trying. Belter, a game of intermediate complexity. Belter is an economic game set in the untamed asteroid belt of the 21st century, amid the shattered rubble of the former fifth planet. Players prospect and mine planetoids for mineral wealth, which they will use to expand their corporate empires. With Earth an overcrowded world, the new frontier is the asteroid belt lying between Mars and Jupiter. There is possible to find riches enough for a lifetime or a quick end to life. More than a simple board game, Belter introduces elements of role-playing and imagination, while realistic constraints supply and demand, supervised elections, physical violence, shape the course of the game. So as far as the components, so rulebook obviously. So the rules are 12 pages, and there's a lot of information there obviously. They're pretty well done. They're black and white. I think they explain things pretty clearly. The rules aren't overly complex, but in implementation there's a lot of subtleties. And one part of it is, it says of other required materials, as the game calls for considerable bookkeeping, each player will need a pencil and paper. And yeah, that's true. There will be considerable bookkeeping because you have dozens and dozens of asteroids and forces. So I think a lot of how much I enjoy the game will be how well they don't have the bookkeeping like spreadsheet with this, so that'll be custom and developed for that. But a lot of how I enjoy it will be how well that is managed, I think. And then player raise, so there's a salary and maintenance table. And then there's combat results tables and prospecting tables, so I'll go into detail. 2 copies of those. And for the basic game, it's 2 to 4 players. And then there's an advanced game, which can be 5 players. So the counters, there's like 500, approaching like 500 counters. It doesn't come with a tray, but kind of neatly on eBay, this is actually a GDW tray I was able to get, and I was able to get a few from other games too. So I was very happy to get that. So it's a real GDW tray, even though you had to buy it separate for the game. It's a bit like SPI kind of trade games, trades a little bit, but one dice, and then here's the counters. Like I said, good mix of counters. I'll show the details of the unique counters here. So here's the unique counters. So for the 4 players, obviously they come in different color coded, and generally there's a leader, a crew, worker, thugs, seeker, patrol, carrier, base, smelter, just a general miner, and a contra-terrene miner. And I'll talk about these all in detail in the rules. As far as, they're pretty symmetrical between them. There's a little bit of variation though as far as the the personnel here. Seems to be a little bit different mix for some of the different colors. Specifically for the blue, they don't have thugs. And I double checked that with information out there on Board Game Geek, and yeah, it's true that they have a different mix for the blue than they do the others, and so there's a little bit of variation in there. I guess that shows that there's a little bit of difference between the corporations, for instance. So these are the dedicated units in different colors. So a player would have these as their kind of like full-time employees or resources here, and then paid for resources. The idea is that the dedicated get in what they call a profit sharing agreement. But they have to pay for the resources here, and so for crew, workers, troops, or thugs. And then over here, so in the advanced game, there's a peacekeeping force, which kind of goes around making sure how things are going amongst the different players. And they have a leader, a crew, a troop, and a patrol. And then lastly is the map. And again, given credit to GDW, they were definitely at the forefront of innovating and kind of setting up what these kind of war games would look like. So they've set a standard in many ways. And I think their games were excellent at the time. They still hold up, very well. So the map is, space. Each hex has a unique identifier. And black, obviously, are voids. And then there's 3 types of asteroids. There's ore-bearing asteroids, which are green. There's frozen gas asteroids, which are white. And then there are rock asteroids that are this orangish. And there's dozens of each type. I think in here it says there's about 70 of each of the different types. So there's a lot of asteroids, and in the game, of course, you got to keep track of those. So it'll be interesting how that works. And then, so there's also these 3 planetoids. Where there's small worlds, they would be like, large asteroids like maybe Ceres or Poly. It doesn't say specifically which ones they are. But they're sizable enough that they can hold a population. They have supply centers you can purchase, and goods, hire personnel. Yeah, that's where gases and ores are sold, so that's the marketplace. And then there's boundaries, there's separate boundaries. There's a counter-terrene development area, and counter-terrene is basically antimatter. And then there's the magnetic sling channel, and then there's the naval ore reserve, number 3. So, and I'll talk about how all those work in the detail rules. And it's a thick paper, but I think it looks nice. So go through the rules here. First of all, it does clarify up here that the 3 large planetoids, Juno, Haven, and Marketplace, are there, and I think Juno is an actual asteroid. The other, I think, are fictitious. So on the turn side, determine the order of movement. Just rolling dice, see who goes first, and also bribes. Player turn, so each player then takes their turn. There's 5 phases: ore production, operational mines produce ore and gas, cargo loading, all stationary ships may load cargo, movement, phasing player may move any or all of his ships, combat, if any combat results from movement, and it's an option, it's not required. Cargo offloading, the phasing player may offload cargo from any stationary ship. And then the market phase. So then all players with ore, gas, and marketplace may sell it. Players with units on a planetoid may purchase ship, installation, additional equipment, may hire personnel at that planetoid. At the conclusion of market phase, game turn is complete. Each game turn represents the passage of 1 week. So initiative, before the player turn starts, so you roll dice. But then you can also do bribes, where each player secretly sets aside some money in increments of 100 credits. And if they win, they get the favorable die roll modification of 1. Movement. So patrol ship movement. They have like a fusion engine, and they may move from any one hex to any other hex. Movement of the patrol ship requires an expenditure of 500 credits for fuel. Seeker and carrier movement. They have lower thrust chemical drives. They can either do maneuver movement or coasting. So maneuver movement, they have 6 movement points to expend. Each seeker does, and each carrier is 4. And they can expend either to change facing or to enter hexes, or a combination of the two. To change facing from vertex to adjacent hex sides, vice versa, requires an expenditure of 1 movement point. So it goes from side to vertex to side. To enter a hex where the ship is facing requires expenditure of 1/2 movement point. Conclusion of the turn maneuver movement. Ship may be declared stationary, and stationary ships cannot use coasting movement. Use of maneuver movement by ship requires expenditure of 100 credits of fuel. And this coasting movement, ship using coasting movement must move exactly 6 in the hexes in the facing direction. Matching courses of a ship belonging to a phasing player in hex with another ship is said to have matched the course, provided that the phasing player's ship in the same facing direction as the other ship, the phasing player ship is a patrol ship, or it executes maneuver movement in that phase. Matching courses is a prerequisite for combat and for cargo transfer. And then combat, each player may initiate combat during the combat phase. But it's possible. There are 2 types. There's fire and melee combat. Fire takes place between two or more ships of opposing players, between ships of one player and the installations of another, or in a combination of the above. Fire combat can take place at the option of the phasing player. It's never mandatory. In order to initiate against an enemy ship, the phasing player must match course with it. In order to initiate fire combat against an enemy installation, the phasing player must be stationary in the hex occupied the enemy installation. Fire combat is ranged heavy weapons firing. Takes place only between 2 units in the same hex that have met the criteria. Both the phasing player's units and the opponent's units fire. Fire combat proceeds in series firing rounds. Each firing round has 3 steps: range determination, beam fire, and misfire. Range determination, there are 2 possible ranges: long range and short range. First firing round of combat always takes place in the long range. The range of each firing round after that is determined by the player having the unit which is least maneuverable. The order of the maneuverability is installation, carrier, seeker, and patrol ship. So if one player did installation and the other did not, the player without the installation would determine the range. Range affects combat by reducing the effectiveness of beam attacks, as detailed below. Beam attacks. All beam attacks are conducted before a missile. There's 3 types of beam weapons available: mining lasers, combat lasers, and particle accelerators. Mining lasers are or standard equipment on seekers. Combat lasers may be purchased and installed on ships and installations. Particle accelerators may be purchased and installed only in installations. Each ship and installation may fire each beam weapon once during each beam combat. Each beam fire is directed at a single enemy installation. A unit with more than one beam weapon may fire each weapon once per round and may fire at different targets or the same target. All such attacks are considered to be simultaneous. Missile attacks, after resolution of beam attacks, any unit which has beam weapons which is then fired, the beam weapons attack and the firing may use them in the anti-missile role. Use of such weapons will modify the probability of hitting the target. Missile fire is conducted in the same manner as described for beam fire. Fire combat resolution. Each attack is resolved in 2 steps: a hit determination step and damage determination assessment step. Hit determination is performed using the hit table, which is shown here, and then there's the damage table. Look at the column corresponding to the target type. So these are target types. Roll 1 die. Plenty appropriate die roll modifiers to die roll and note the result. So hit or miss. Firing beams, the die roll will be modified by +2. If firing at the long range, if firing missiles, the die roll will be modified by +1 if the target has mining laser or in the anti-missile roll, by +2 if the target has a combat laser in the anti-missile roll, by +2 if the target has a particle accelerator in the anti-missile roll. Each such weapon function in the anti-missile roll may only affect one missile attack. Results on the hit table read out as hits and misses. In the event of a miss, the attack has no effect. In the event of a hit, players proceed to the damage assessment step. Damage assessment is resolved on the damage table, which is shown here. Locate the correct column corresponding to the weapon which achieved the hit. Up here. Roll and die and note the result. So, there are no die roll modifications to the damage assessment table. There are a total of 9 different types. There's hulled. The target unit has less pressure. Melee combat odds during this player turn this turn are raised 1 odds column higher than the computed. This missile disabled. 1 missile rack on the target is disabled. If all missile racks are totally disabled, then one of them is destroyed. Disabled missile racks may not fire for the remainder of the combat phase. Following the current player turn, they may be repaired according to the repair procedure. Beam disabled. Result is the same as missile disabled, but applies to beam weapons. Missile destroyed. 1 missile rack is destroyed. Missile racks may not be repaired. Beam destroyed. The result, the beam is destroyed and can be repurchased but not repaired. Drive disabled. The ship's drives have been put out of action. The ship may not conduct maneuver movement until they have been repaired. If it's stationary, it remains stationary. If it's not stationary, it will conduct coasting movement until it either repairs its drives or exits the map. Once a unit exits the map, it's eliminated. The DD result has no effect on installations. Drives destroyed. The drives are permanently out of the action and may not be repaired. If stationary, the ship remains so. Ship, if not stationary, continue coasting until it exits the map. Target destroyed. The target unit and all its contents are removed from play. Personnel units are in vacuum suits and hex and may be rescued by any other unit in game turn. Not rescued in the game turn, they are eliminated. Personnel casualties. Personnel units on board the ship may suffer losses. Roll and die per personnel unit. Board and roll 6, the unit is eliminated. Another roll, the unit survives unharmed. This may result in the ship becoming unmanned, such as ship remains stationary, and otherwise it will coast. And then there's melee attacks. Melee attacks may be conducted either as a result of boarding actions or landing on asteroids or planetoids. Preconditions for melee. In order to conduct melee, attacker must land on the asteroid containing the installation. The attacker may land on the asteroid only if the drives of the ship are operational and the weaponry based on the installation of the asteroid have been put out of action. In order to conduct melee attacks against a ship, the attacker must board it. The attacker may board a ship only if the drives of his ship are operational. Drives of the weaponry of the other ship have been put out of action. Effects of fire combat. Once the ship has landed on an enemy asteroid or boarded an enemy ship, other enemy units may not fire on the landed boarded ship due to its close proximity to friendly units. Landings and boardings may take place during fire combat and proceed simultaneously with them. So procedure. Melee proceeds in a series of rounds. One melee round is conducted after every firing round. Each melee player initiates the melee attacker. Note that the non-facing player may be the melee attacker if he can meet the preconditions for melee. Only personnel units may participate in melee. Each personnel unit has a melee value equal to the number of figure silhouettes on it. Leaders 1, crew 2, workers 3, 4. Each melee round consists of 2 steps. First, the attacker attacks defending personnel units. Next, surviving defending personnel units counterattack the attacking personnel units. It sounds like it's not simultaneous. Each personnel unit is attacked individually by at least one enemy unit. All enemy personnel units must be attacked, if possible. After each enemy personnel unit has at least one friendly personnel, after the attacker conducts his attacks, the defender may counterattack with each of his surviving personnel units. Each such counterattack is directed at one of the attacking units commanded to attack and defending unit. Leaders form a special case. Leaders may be attached to any other personnel unit and add their melee value to the units if they are an integral part of it. Leaders may never be attacked alone as long as there is one other friendly unit surviving. Any number of leaders may be attached to a single friendly unit, but never to other leaders. Melee resolution. Total melee factors of the attacking and counterattacking units compares total to melee factor of the enemy unit. Reduces comparison to a simple odds ratio shown on the melee table, which is here. Ship installation has been held, then raise the odds by 1 column. Roll die and note the result. One of the 4 melee combat results appears. Hard pressed. The unit against which the attack or contact was directed is hard pressed and as a result may not attack or counterattack at its next scheduled opportunity. Exchange. The unit against which the attack and counterattack was directed is eliminated, is removed from play. The attacking and counterattacking player must move units which participate in melee, which at least equal the melee factor of the eliminated unit. Exception: if the second part of the exchange roll would force the elimination of one of the leaders, then the player may choose not to let them be eliminated. The player may always choose to allow their elimination rather than lose other personnel. Killed. The unit against which the attack was directed is fallen in combat, is eliminated. Surrender. Overpowered by the weight of numbers. The unit against which the attack was directed gives up and is taken prisoner. Termination of combat. Combat may be terminated any one of 4 ways. Escape. Player may anytime attempt to escape from combat. Only ships with operational drives may attempt escape. Furthermore, ships boarded by enemy personnel. Escape. A player may at any time attempt to escape from combat. Only ships with operational drives may attempt to escape. And ships boarded by enemy personnel may not. A ship which escapes may only be attacked by a ship which pursues it. Any ships which do pursue the escapee may no longer fire at non-escaping ships. A ship may only pursue an escaping ship which is equally or less maneuverable than itself. Carriers, for example, may not pursue seekers. Pursuing ships may then continue the battle with the escaping ship. If several ships with a defender escape at the same time, they may attempt to escape in one group or several groups or individually. Pursuers different separately for each group or individual escaping ship. Each group is assumed to have the same maneuverability of the least maneuverable ship in the group. Elimination. If there are no more units of one player or another in hex, then combat ceases from unilateral declaration. One player may unilaterally declare combat to be over. The other side has had all of its fire combat weapons to destroy or disabled, and there are no melee in progress. In this case, a player who still has fire combat weapons could continue the battle indefinitely if it desired, but may consider not to do so, or by mutual agreement could cease as well. Maintenance and upkeep. Much of the equipment and assets which belters use require continuing expenditure and maintenance in order to continue operations. Ultimately, maintenance costs more than the original purchase price. Maintenance costs are paid each during the market phase. All ships and installations require maintenance. Purchase weapons do not. If maintenance costs are not paid, equipment becomes unavailable. Into account the effects of unreliability, roll dive each turn. For each item it's not maintained, the maintenance die roll is made in the preliminary phase. The first time that item goes out of maintenance, it will break down as a roll of 6. If it is not maintained next turn, it will break down 5 or 6. And it goes on like that. Once maintenance is paid, the item equipment is reliable again and no further rolls are made. Once item breaks down, it ceases to function until repaired. Installation ships work and may not fire any mounted weapons. The ship may not longer conduct maneuver movement, nor may it fire mounted weapons. Patrol ship is removed from play until its drives are repaired. Non-stationary seeker or carrier breaks down. It conducts coasting movement until it's repaired. And if they go off the map, then they're gone. Repairs, installations may only be repaired by a worker personnel unit. Repairs may take 1 to 5, 6 game turns. Roll 1 die to determine the length of time to repair the malfunction. Die roll indicates the seriousness of the malfunction, the expense to repair. Multiply the die roll by 5, and the result is a percentage of the original purchase price, the equipment that the repair costs. For example, ship breakdowns are repaired similarly, except that the die roll is halved. Running frictions up when determining the time required to make the repair, and the ship repairs are normally done by the crew unit instead of the worker units. Die roll is not halved for purposes of calculating expense. Ship breakdowns may also be repaired by leaders. Ship breakdowns may also be repaired by leaders in the absence of the crew unit. Such repairs take longer, do not have the die roll for time required. Additional personnel units of the correct type present or aboard the ship may assist in repairs and thus reduce the time required to complete them. Reach an additional personnel unit of the correct type, reduce the time required to make the repair by 1 turn. Time required may not be reduced less than 1 turn. Reducing the time required does not affect the cost of repairs. So immigration and hired help. So the units that are kind of black and white here are immigrants. So at the beginning of black and white, they're placed face down, and from the total mix, 10 counters are drawn and placed face up in a convenient central location. That's the initial labor pool. So during the preliminary phase of each turn, new immigrants may be added, and 1 new immigrant is added for each credit increase in the price of ore gas, whichever is greater. Whenever labor pool units have been hired or player eliminated, they're returned to the central supply labor pool units. So to hire, players may hire units from labor pool during the market phase. To hire, they must have at least one dedicated personnel unit in marketplace. Since there's a limited number of units in labor pool, it's possible to strategically thwart another player by hiring scarce personnel, which he requires. All hiring takes place after ore and gas have been sold. Players hire labor pool units in the order of initiative determined. So once hired, the labor pool units must be paid a salary. They must be always stacked with the player's units of the player's color to do anything. If as a result of combat they're not stacked to the player's color anymore, then they can't be involved. So salaries. Hired units from labor pool must pay out a salary each turn. These salaries are listed in the salary and maintenance table, which is shown here. If you have to pay salaries, Could be result in work stoppages, labor disputes. Each turn in my phase will run die once for each unpaid labor pool unit, and look at the labor relations table, which is here. For each of the 4 units, 5 possible results were listed. No effect. Stop. Unit will stop working. Units will continue to perform maintenance, but work crews will not mine ore, and or crews will return to their ships, Juno, and all units will refuse to participate in any melee attacks. If they're attacked, they'll function normally, but not otherwise. And they'll return work if they paid back their back salary. Strike, the unit will behave as indicated in stop. In addition, the units will cease performing maintenance as well. And all units will prevent non-striking units, which are weaker than they, from carrying out any tasks other than ship maintenance. And they'll return to Juno. Once in Juno, striking crews will no longer conduct maintenance on the ship they are occupying, and will not allow any crew, unit, or leader to unship until the dispute is settled. Dispute is settled when strikers are paid all back wages plus an additional week's pay. Riot, the units is actually destroying their employees' property in an effort to force payment back salary. Behaves as striking, but additionally will scatter and thus effectively destroy the for game purposes, 10 units of already mined gas or ore per turn, if neither an installation, storing, or ship carrying ore. In the absence of any ore or gas, they'll begin to destroy installed weaponry, starting the most expensive first. Each riding personnel will destroy 1 installed weapon per turn. They will return to work only upon payment of twice back salary and amnesty. Quit. Once ship crew quit, they do so. They will take the ship they are manning, their manning ship, and return to Juno. They may not be rehired by that player again, except at double salary and upon payment of twice back salary. See a roll on the labor relations table once each turn for each personnel unit for whom salaries have not been paid. If the result of the crew's riot, strike, or quit. That is not necessary to roll for that unit in later turns, as they've already quit or will continue to strike or riot. Units involved in labor disputes will return to Juno using maneuver movement exclusively. The owning player must pay the bill. Then dedicated personnel. Salaries are not necessary, as assumed they are retained by profit sharing plan. Players start with a certain number of dedicated units at the start of the game. Other dedicated personnel are placed face down in a convenient location. For every third mine a player opens, he receives 1 additional dedicated personnel unit. At the same time, players should keep a running total number of mines they have opened thus far. If a mine is lost, the next mine build is considered to be a replacement for that mine. Transfers, personnel units installed equipment cargoes may be transferred from one ship to another. In the movement phase, to do so, 2 ships must be managed courses. Ship only 1 player is managed courses with ship another player, and their player's ship has been captured by melee combat. Cargo equipment and personnel may be transferred from the captured enemy ship to the friendly. Likewise, a crew unit may be transferred to a disabled or unmanned ship to capture it and bring it to the service of the friendly. In this case, the enemy ship would be removed and the color of the correct color substituted. Sun rescues and prisoners. So if personnel units are stranded without life support, they have to be rescued that turn. They're stranded or they're eliminated. Any player may rescue stranded personnel. Personnel units left on an asteroid after all friendly installation is destroyed may be rescued by any ship landing on the asteroid. Ship may not rescue unit if the addition of the individuals would exceed the life support of the ship. And this is, so here's the ship capacities here, life support. If personnel units are rescued, the capturing player may do any of the 4 things to each captured or rescued. Of course, if you pick up your own players, it's not an issue. But if they're rescued captured, they may space them. They may take their vacuum suits away and shove them out the nearest airlock. That's not nice. Labor pool units return to the drawing pile of labor pool units. Entered. Dedicated units removed from play permanently. Can hire them. Labor pool units which have been captured or rescued will work for the new employer loyally at the same wage as former employer. Dedicated personnel may not be hired. Ransom them. The player from whom players are captured may be willing to pay for their return. Price is any mutually agreed upon value. Return them. Units may be returned to Geno or any other appropriate location without fee or charge. I guess if you're like allies or something. Purchasing equipment. Equipment is purchased during the market phase and the order desired. Each player has his own counter mix. There's no particular advantage to going first to last. 3 types of equipment. Ships, installations, installed equipment. Ships and installations are represented by counter the correct type. Cost to purchase ships and installations listed in the equipment chart. Shown here. Ships and installations both also require maintenance. No current is provided to represent installed equipment. All installed equipment is recorded on paper. Equipment may be installed on ship or installation when equipment is purchased. Installed equipment does not require maintenance. But if the unit breaks down, it breaks down as well. Repairing installed equipment does not add to the time required to repair a unit. When the unit is repaired, the installed equipment is also operational again. Repair of broken down installed equipment does require the expenditure of money as D106 maintenance and upkeep. There are 4 items of installed equipment possible: military lasers, particle accelerators, military missile racks, and CT storage bays. Each carrier and each seeker have either 1 missile rack or 1 military laser installed. In the case of the seeker, this is in addition to its integral mining laser, not instead of it. Each patrol ship can have 3 lasers, 3 missile racks, or any combination of the 2. Each installation can have an unlimited number of lasers, missile racks, and particle accelerators. Any ship may have CT storage bays installed. Each CT storage bay takes up 1 unit in the cargo hold and holds transportation of 1 unit CT. Only ships with CT storage bays may carry CT, and they may only carry as many CT as they have CT bays. No other cargo may be carried in space occupied by CT storage bay. Special regions. There's 3 special regions. There's magnetic sling channel. Each friendly movement phase during which appears in the sling channel. Roll 1 die. Roll 6. The ship is struck by an earthbound ore package and suffers the effects of 2 missile hits. A ship is in the magnetic sling channel if it spends any or all of its movement in the sling channel hex. Concentrating development areas. Players may pass through CT development area at will. Mining, prospecting, mining, any of the asteroids of the area is, however, considered to be trespassing. Any player who mines any asteroid of the CT development area is permanently barred from selling CT to the development project. The CT development area itself is merely a research preserve and has no greater or lesser chance of containing CTs than any other asteroid. However, the asteroids of the CT development area are the only places where players may sell CT shards. CT development project will purchase CT shards at the purchase of 10,000 credits each. Naval Reserve 3. Players may not voluntarily enter Naval 1 Reserve 3. Disabled ships which drift into reserve are automatically repaired by the Navy and sent on their way. Ship capacities. Ship capacity chart shown here shows the hard points like support and cargo. Each ship has 3 capacities: hard points like support cargo. 1 laser missile rack may be mounted per hard point. 1 person may be carried per life support unit point. 1 unit contains a number of people equal to the number of silhouettes on the counter. 1 unit of cargo may be carried per cargo point. Each unit of ore, frozen gas, CT weighs 1 point. The weight of installed equipment carried for later installation is given the equipment table. And the weight is shown here is the weight. The prices. Smelting, one type of installation that may be purchased is the smelter. Smelter may be placed on any asteroid containing mine. Smelter processes all ore, not gas from asteroid, regardless of how many mines are in operation, refining it to a pure, more compact state. For every 3 tons of ore mined, a smelter will produce 1 ton of high-grade metal. High-grade metal sells for 4 times the current market price of ore. The sale of high-grade metal in the market is treated as having the effect of 3 times its weight when determining the market price. Smelters may not be used to refine gas or CT. 1 worker unit is required to run and maintain the smelter in addition to the worker unit required for the asteroid mines. Concentrating matters special rules. Each player has 1 CT mine countermix. CT mines are held in close proximity to CT asteroid magnetic field. Should the field fail, the results could be cataclysmic. The field of CT mine may fail from one of 2 causes, lack of maintenance or combat damage. If CT mine breaks down due to lack of maintenance, it falls into the CT asteroid. If CT mine takes a DD or DX in combat, it falls into the asteroid. If mine falls into a CT asteroid, both mine and the asteroid are immediately destroyed. Each ship in the hex of the asteroid takes from 1 to 6 missile hits. Roll 1 die. Additionally, roll dice once for each asteroid in addition to the hex. Roll 1 or 2. It and all installations are destroyed. There's no possibility of rescue from a destroyed CT mine or the installation in addition hex destroyed by result, or any ship which receives a TX result from resulting missile hit. CT bombs, a unit of CT carried in a cargo hold, along with a CT storage bay, may be detached from a ship and dropped on an asteroid or a planetoid. CT bombs are dropped during the missile step of fire combat round. Like normal missiles, they will impact against an asteroid and roll 5 or less, and against a planetoid roll of 6 or less. Lasers and particle accelerators may be used to deflect prematurely detonate the CT bomb. You seem to roll modifiers to avoid if it were a missile. There's no limit to the number of weapons that may be trained on a single CT bomb. Hit from a CT bomb will destroy the entire asteroid or planetoid, along with all personnel equipment. Additionally, all ships in the hex receive 1 missile hit as a result. CT ships. CT ships are defined as any ship outfitted with 1 or more CT unit in a CT storage base. Such a ship suffers a DD or DX in combat. The magnetic containment vessel used to store CT will fail, destroying the ship with all hands. Also, each ship in the hex receives 1 missile hit per 10 units or fraction of CT carried by a CT ship. Morale to the extreme danger associated with mining and transferring CT. And they're involved in combat on CT. Only dedicated personnel will enter the hex known to contain CT. The only circumstance where personnel unit from a labor pool will enter such hex is piloting a seeker on a prospecting mission which inadvertently discovers CT. Labor personnel will, under the circumstances, immediately leave the hex and broadcast a navigation warning to other players, i.e. tell them where the CT is. A ship containing labor pool units but piloted by dedicated personnel to have sent to a known CT hex. The labor pool units will attempt by melee to seize the ship and force the dedicated crew to turn away. The other players should each roll dice, with high die roll controlling the labor pool units. Upon turning away, the labor pool units revert to the control of the owning player. Public safety in the basic game. No ship containing CT may enter planetoid hex. All ships which do so, either by intent or by accident, will be destroyed by the defense system of the planetoid. The effects of the CT bombs on planetoids are used only in the advanced game. Asteroids, of course, are open season. Combat between installations. Evil event. 2 hostile players have installation of the same asteroid. Special rules required. All hostile installations are considered to be below the asteroid horizon. Is viewed by the enemy. Beam weapons may not be used by an installation hex against another in the same. Missiles can be fired. However, since range effects only beam fire, If the only firing unit effects are installations, the range determination step may be dispensed. Is necessary. Personnel installations are considered landed already, but may not melee enemy until the enemy installation's weaponry has been disabled or destroyed. And then I'll show setup for the starting the game. So victory in the basic game is determined solely by wealth. Players are free to set limits, which correspond to their own taste in terms of game length. Two means of setting victory are possible. Threshold. First player reaches a certain wealth threshold wins. Or time limit. Players control the length of the game by setting the arbitrary time at which the total victory. Now I'll just briefly go over the advanced rules. I'll be doing the basic game. But in the advanced, there can be a peacekeeping force, which is another player, and they're a multinational force. It says the initial units, where they get reinforcements, their budget, their goals. The goals is to keep the price of gas and ore low. That's your goal. Then there's a naval reserve. So before the game begins, the PKF player protects every asteroid in the naval reserve. While unauthorized mining is illegal, he is free to look the other way in exchange for a bribe. Planetary defenses. Each planetary has defenses at the beginning of the game is listed above. These will not automatically shoot down ship carrying CT. The decision is stated up to the player who controls the planetary defense. Government records purchases in base game. All players are aware of what installed equipment the opposing players purchase. In the advanced game, this is not necessary. Each player must inform the PKF player of such purchases. Revolt of the Belt. PKF player obviously wields great power. The mining players may at any time declare revolt against the PKF. Player the highest vote is the leader of the revolt and controls all patrol ships belonging to the other participants in the revolt. Duration, the revolt lasts until one side or the other has been wiped out. So results can be the Belt surrender, PKF surrender, and then there's PKF regrouping. At the end of every revolt, PKF units are removed from the board. All eliminated PKF units are added to the surviving units and the units waiting to enter. Arms embargo. Mining players may not purchase ships, installations, or install equipment during revolt. Optional rules can pre-plan fuel. Bank financing. Players may find the operating moves of Belter too slow for their own taste and wish to speed up. This can be done through bank financing. The bank finances any ship other than Poltrip in any conventional miner shelter. The bank will not finance high defense endeavors like CT mining. Variable PKF victory. Advanced scan the PKF victory level is tied to 200 points. 200 credit target price for ore and gas. Additionally, the wide variety of game length options available to players. Then realistic to set a specific level and expected to apply in all circumstances. So, some variability what you can do there. And then, on the back, there's a summary of capacities and costs. So that's the rules. So we'll set up here. It's pretty straightforward. So starting the game, take one encounter for each of the four built color mixes, orange, green, red, and blue, and shake them up. Each player draws one counter. The color of the counter drawn being this color for the game. Note that while each color has the same number of each type of ship and installation, and each has the same overall number of personnel units, the exact mix of personnel units varies. So it's good to have that verification where I saw that the types of personnel vary a little bit. Next, each player decides whether he wishes to begin the game as a prospector, a partnership, or a corporation. Prospectors start with much less in the way of resources, while corporations start with more. But prospectors do not have to accomplish as much to win. Each player then selects his initial counters. Each prospector starts with one leader himself, one seeker, and 800 credits. Each partnership starts with 2 leaders, 1 seeker, 1 worker, and 1,500 credits. Each corporation begins with 1 leader, 1 crew, 1 worker, 1 seeker, 1 carrier, 1 mine, and 2,000 credits. A partnership player may prospect any 3 asteroids, and a corporation player any 6 asteroids before play begins. Prospectors don't, I guess. Prospectors begin with their units on any of the planetoids. Partnerships and corporations begin with their units on any of the planetoids or on any asteroid they prospected before play began. Players who can prospect before play begins should each roll a die with the highest die going first, the second, etc. No player may prospect an asteroid before play if it has already been prospected by another player. Play now begins with the first turn. So I've decided that both players will do a 2-player game with red and orange, and they'll both go as corporations. So I'm going to use these sheets I put together, and there's similar approaches that are on Board Game Geek, etc. But I found these work for me. And after this, I'll have images of this if it's helpful for you if you want to use them. So for each player, there's a basically kind of a turn. This is kind of the accounting sheet with ore prices, gas prices, and the expenditures. And for a corporation, they both start with a balance of 2,000. Then for each player, tracking their installations and then their ships. And so for both the corporations, they start with a seeker and a carrier, which I indicated here. And then for the corporation, they're allowed to prospect 6 asteroids each. So orange, I'll keep track of them on this asteroid sheet here. They can each prospect 6 asteroids, and basically what you do is you go to whether it's gas or rock, you roll to see what the richness is, whether it's some gas, metal, or rock, and then also the extensiveness to see what that is. And from doing that, orange 3015, 3215, 3116, 314, 2812, and 2813, and kind of a mix of gas and ore. The gas, one was trace with richness of 1, extensive 2. One had nothing on it. One was a rich with get 15.2 and extensive 2. Actually, that's where I'm going to put the mine. And then as far as ore, one had nothing. One had poor with extensiveness of 2. As far as red, 2315, 2714, and a few others here. And so they looked at some rock as well because they wanted a chance of getting contra terrain. So the gas ones wanted nothing. One was poor, extensive 2. Ore were a couple of good ones with 10, extensiveness of 1. And the rocks, one was trace and one was poor. And they decided to put their mine on 2014 here. And I have the seekers with leaders kind of expanding out here, looking around. And then the crew, and then the mine with the workers on the ones I've shown. So that's the setup, then we'll get into play. So I'm 22 turns into it, and I'll show you where I'm at here. First of all, these are the components I got hanging around here. So they've been, they both done a couple of journeys to marketplace to deposit materials and to buy stuff. So right now we have orange has a carrier escorted by a seeker that's coming in to deliver some cargo. Similarly, red has a carrier escorted by a seeker coming in. And they each have 4 mines around here. So Here's the track of Orange. Currently have 1340. They have a lot of salaries because they have they have some crew and also workers that they're paying salaries to. That's that. And the oil and gas price has been going up, and it's reduced a little bit. You take a -1 diroll for the depending on the quantities of hundreds of amount of that. And then something I read is they have fewer salaries. They were able to get some dedicated personnel that are more useful, but they do have to. They are paying salaries for some, workers and crew. So, and their maintenance. They have. So the orange has another more seeker than the red, so they have a little bit less maintenance there. And they have 2,640, the current. As far as the asteroids, so actually red was fortunate. They've discovered a few that have 30, which is pure. So and they have 4 mines distributed in those. Orange, they got some rich mines, or at least a couple, and they have 1 pure, so they're focusing on that. So right now it looks like, red's got a bit of an advantage in what they are producing, but orange has a little more ships. And these are the ships, or these are the mines, locations, and how much they're storing. And these are for red. They were able to get some equipment. Actually, on the mines here, they have a couple mines with lasers because they have high production. They want to protect them. And then also on the seekers, they're both lasers, and one's got missile rock. Then they have 1 carrier. Orange they don't have any lasers on their mines right now, but they have an extra seeker, and they have a laser and missile rock in one, and then a laser in the other. Then they have a carrier. So right now, what's going on is, so they're bringing them in, and actually this mine here produces 30, and since red has somewhat of an advantage in mines, orange is going to go there and see what, they have a couple seekers going there to, I guess, seek and destroy. See what damage they can do to that. It's protected by a seeker right now. So first phase is production. So red, so we'll just increase each turn is a week. So basically increasing by 10 and then 30 and 30. So then orange, they're producing 15, 30, 10 and 30. So obviously it would be easier to just have this, on a laptop and a spreadsheet, but I'm trying to stay a little bit old school and just record it on paper. But it would definitely be easier in a spreadsheet. So then it's cargo loading and movement. So the cargo's already been loaded. These ships are on their way. They each only have 1 carrier. So then for movement, they're each allowed 6 movement points, and it takes 1 to rotate, and then 2 each vertex or face, and then half to move forward. And if they rotate, they have to spend fuel for 100 for maneuvering, otherwise they can coast. But so here, this is within his movement. So Goes there. And then he'll have to expend a maneuver to basically become stationary. They're going to Marketplace because that's where they sell goods. Similarly there. So they're both on there. They didn't have to turn, but like I said, they did have to expend maneuvering to land there. And then similarly, so these guys are going to battle here. He's going to do battle there. He doesn't match the phase of the Seeker, but he can attack the installation. But the red is going to move to be in phase with him so that he can attack him. So that's all the movement. So now we're going to do combat. So there's 2 orange Seekers here and 1 red Seeker, and they're all phased together and over a mine here. And the mine doesn't have any defense capability, so it's 2 Seekers against 1. So first of all, beam attacks, and initially it's long range. So it's a +1 since they're at long range. So we'll do orange first. 6, so they're going against the Seeker, so they miss because it's a total of 8. 4, again they miss because they got an adjusted to 6, and they needed an adjusted of 4 or less. Red will fire. 2, so they hit. We had 2 + 2 is 4. Then we do damage, so red is going against orange. 3, with a military laser. HMX, so it's hulled, so I'll indicate that. And MX, missiles are destroyed. So they're without missiles now. And then we do the missile round, and now orange doesn't have any missiles because just that one had it. Red will do a missile attack. 2, hit, damage. HPC MX. So it was going against this one again, so it's already hold. PC personnel casualty. So you roll, and if it's a 6, casualty is no. Casualty isn't. The personnel isn't destroyed. Then MX, missiles destroyed. So it's still without missiles. So then we do the beam attacks. So orange has 2 beam attacks. And each turn is a week, so this will all be resolved in 1 turn here. So orange going against red. And now it's short range because after the initial range they can decide to go short and they both have the same maneuver, so they can decide that. So that's a hit. Damage. With a military laser, HDX, so red is hulled and the drives are destroyed, which is pretty significant. Can't go anywhere. And then orange is going to go again. Miss. And then red. So he can't go anywhere, but he can still fire. He'll do his laser. 3, hit, damage. MDBD, so it's going against this one, and so they don't have any missiles, but their beam is disabled. So now orange cannot fire the beam on 2. And then missiles, so orange doesn't have any missiles, but red does. 1 is a hit, damage. HPCDX. So he's going against this one, so this one's hulled as well. Personnel, if it's a 6, it's a casualty. Nope. DX, drive is destroyed. So it's significant too. So now 2 can't go anywhere. One can't do anything. Orange one can't do anything, so they're going to escape. And they're going to go 1, 2, 1 half, 1, 1 half, 2, 3. I mean, the other one would like to go, but their drive has been destroyed, so they can't. So it's not looking good for them. They really have no capability. So, I mean, it's a given outcome what's going to happen there, because they don't have, orange doesn't have offense, they can't move, but red does. But we'll just do another roll to show. So red's attacking, misses. But eventually, orange will be destroyed along with the crew. And then we do cargo offloading here. So they're both at marketplace, and they're going to offload and sell their materials. So now they're both going to offload their cargo and sell it. And they can do that here. So for every 100 units of a material type, you reduce the die roll by 1. So ore, there's going to be a total of 120 plus 180, so 300. So we reduced the number by 3. So 4, the price then, instead of going up 4, it'll go up 1 since we reduced that. So it goes to 146. And then for gas, there's a total of 180 plus 75, 255. So that'll be reduce it by 2 then. So 5, instead of increasing it by 5, we increase it by 3. And it is possible to get a negative number, but we didn't in this case. So that's how much they sell it for. So then selling and purchasing on marketplace. So red had a total of 120 ore and 180 gas, and at the current market rates, they got 17,520 for the ore, 27,360 for the gas, for a total of over 44,000. And then after deducting fuel, salaries, and maintenance, they decided to purchase a carrier for 50,000. So now they have another carrier to move their materials around, and then that gets them down to 4750. So orange, they got over 26,000 for their ore, 11,000 for the gas, for a total of 37,680 for all the stuff they sold. And then after deducting fuel, salaries, and maintenance, they were able to purchase a mine for 10,000, a seeker for 10,000, and then 2 military lasers, one for the mine and one for the seeker. So for a total of 30,000, and the result is they have 7640 remaining. So that's that, and then they also need crew. So, and this is going to cost salaries, which are significant. So since the red got a carrier, they're going to need a crew, and you only get an extra direct personnel every 3rd mine, and they don't have 6 mines yet. So it's going to cost 200 more salary for that. And then orange needs a crew and a worker for the mine, and then the crew for the seeker. So that'll cost them an extra 200 in salary for the crew and 300 for the worker. So that's an overview of some of the basic play of Belter from GDW, Game Designers Workshop, from 1979. It's quite a unique game. I like the art, I like the box, got a good number of components, quality's good. It's definitely an acquired taste, I don't even see how it was really feasible back in the day, because you need spreadsheets, and unless you did it on like a Selectric typewriter, or I mean maybe Apple IIs were out by then that you could have put something together, but you definitely need a spreadsheet instead of just scratching on paper. But I think once you use spreadsheets, I mean, it's better if you do it on a laptop. If you want to be more consistent with the day, you can handwrite it out like I did. But I think if you do it on a laptop, it's probably not too painful. But it's a lot of interesting elements to it. You have combat, you have resources, and other things I didn't show, but you can take chances of not paying your workers and they might strike, or you may not maintain your facilities and they could fail. I didn't do that because I kind of showed a basic play. But it's got a lot going for it, and if you like resource development and combat and some exploration, it could be for you. So it's a bit complicated for me, but it's a good kind of long-term game to kind of work out, because I went like 23 turns and was pretty involved, and I felt I only was really starting to get into it right there. But if you're not strapped for time, it's something you want to do over time. It's definitely a unique game. I mean, I would give it a 6 myself. Others might rate it higher. But it's definitely a unique game. Belter from GDW. Thanks.